Number 8. Marissa Williams. Patra Williams of Alabama took in her 19-year-old niece Marissa in April of 2014, but their relationship quickly deteriorated. The youngster saw her aunt as overbearing, while Patra was irritated by Marissa's persistent online flirting with older men and inviting them to the home she lived in with her son and fiancé. To deal with her niece, Patra made a Facebook identity of Trey Top Dog Ellis and began communicating with Marissa in an attempt to monitor the teenager's activities. The woman successfully catfished her niece, but she later admitted that the experience revealed far more than she could have imagined. As soon as Marissa began communicating with Top Dog, she started expressing to him how much she despised her aunt, and at one point even suggested she and Ellis have sex in Patra's bedroom while she slept. This escalated to the point that one day Marissa urged Ellis to kidnap her and to kill her aunt in the process. Ignorant as she was that they were the same person, this occurred after an intense fight in which Patra had refused to allow the girl to go out at an unusual hour. Marissa described in detail how he could gain access to her aunt's bedroom and proposed that if Ellis encountered resistance, he should also kill Patra's fiancé, son, and the family dog. Patra began to worry about her family's safety as a result of Marissa's specific instructions, and the fact that she began packing up all of her possessions. She dialed 911 and Marissa was arrested, astonished to discover that her aunt was the same person she'd tried to hire as a hitman. Marissa was charged with solicitation of murder and put in county jail on $30,000 bond. But in another twist, she escaped while on probation and has been on the run ever since. Number 7. DARIN Schilmiller. 5 teens from Alaska have been charged with killing one of their best friends after being catfished online by a stranger from Indiana who promised them $9 million to film the murder. DARIN Schilmiller, 21, posed as millionaire Tyler in an online chat in which he offered 18-year-old Denali Bremer a big payday to, quote, sexually assault and murder someone in Alaska. Bremer got 4 of her friends to join in and set their target as 19-year-old Cynthia Hoffman, whom Bremer had once called her best friend. On June 2, 2019, the group lured Hoffman to Thunderbird Falls in Chujiak under the guise of a friendly hike. It was there that they duct-taped her hands, feet, and mouth and shot her in the back of the head with a 9mm handgun. According to documents citing digital evidence and statements, the teenagers sent numerous Snapchat videos and photos to Schilmiller as proof. The teens tried to burn Hoffman's body before pushing it into the Eklutna River, before sending text messages to Hoffman's family saying that she had been dropped off somewhere else. The day after the murder, Schilmiller allegedly blackmailed Bremer into sexually assaulting young girls. After that, she was arrested on those allegations and pictures were found on her phone linking her to Hoffman's murder. Bremer was arrested alongside Schilmiller and other conspirators, and each of them faced life in jail. Their cases have been postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, hence, no penalty has yet to be pronounced. Number 6. Jerry Smith. On June 1, 2021, police arrived at the apartment of Jerry Smith, a 40-year-old restaurant project manager, for a wellness check. Inside, they discovered Smith's lifeless body, bruised and beaten. Smith had pretended to be a woman named Angie on Tinder, and in April he partnered with 18-year-old Issamem David Alute, a freshman at Virginia Tech who was a member of the school's prestigious football team. The duo met at Smith's residence in Blacksburg, where they engaged in physical intimacy in complete darkness, and with Smith disguising his face, allegedly preventing Atute from realizing his companion was a biological man. On May 31st, Atute returned to Smith's house, realizing Smith was actually a man. Atute, enraged by the catfish, attacked Smith brutally, hitting him in the head 5 times. Smith collapsed to the ground, but Atute kept beating him. He stomped on Smith's skull, smashing all of his facial bones and knocking out several of his teeth. He then fled the scene, leaving Smith to die on his apartment floor. Atute later told detectives that he had left the apartment and did not contact 911 despite hearing bubbling and gurgling sounds coming from the victim. The next day, authorities discovered Smith's heavily beaten body, and Atute was charged with second-degree murder after confessing during questioning. He was released from prison after posting $75,000 bond. He's currently residing at his parents' house, where he is compelled to wear an electronic ankle monitor while awaiting the court's hearing later this year. Number 5. CAMILA ZEIDAN. After her internet boyfriend abandoned their relationship, a 20-year-old Australian woman jumped off of a cliff in Sydney's east in 2013. Her name was Renee Martson. She died when she left from the cliff. She did it because her heart was broken, caused by a catfishing plot planned by her former closest friend, CAMILA ZEIDAN. Camila had used the Facebook images of a young man she'd met at a nightclub and created the persona of Braden Spidieri, under which she began communicating with Marsden online. Braden said he couldn't be visited because he was being held and confined at the Goulburn Correctional Facility after being convicted of manslaughter in the death of a friend in a car accident. Renee and Camila's friendship had begun to erode as their romance deepened. Camila's preoccupation with the former had become clear to her friends and family, with claims of stalking and physical altercations. Renee began to drift away from Camila as her relationship with Braden developed, not knowing that they were the same person. Prosecutors would subsequently claim that after Renee broke free from the controlling real-life friendship, Camila punished her by ripping the imaginary Braden away from her. Renee received a breakup message from the man she loved and been chatting for over a year on the 5th of August, the day she died. As a result, she jumped from the cliff, and her body was never found. The authorities initiated an investigation into her death, and the link between Camila and Braden was discovered. Her house was raided, but the phone she used in the catfishing scheme was not found. Camila later stated that she and Renee were actually in a romantic relationship, and that, fearing rejection from others, they created Braden together in order to freely interact through the profile. But Renee was not aware of Braden's true identity, according to evidence and witness testimony. Despite her obvious guilt, Camila was never convicted since there are no laws in Australia prohibiting catfishing among adults. Number 4. Susannah Birch. 27-year-old Susannah Birch had spent 12 long years in an online relationship with someone she had never met in person. She met a guy who called himself Richard in a chat room when she was only 15 years old. He claimed that he was 17 and that he lived in another part of the state roughly 8 hours away. The two quickly hit it off based on their shared interest and daily spent hours at a time sending each other messages. But there were certain things about Richard that didn't add up. He never video chatted with Susannah, and his promises to meet up with his online girlfriend never came to fruition. He told her that his parents were overprotective, and for years, it was a believable excuse. The couple continued their long-distance romance and even got engaged when Susannah turned 18. 9 more years of breaking up, getting back together, and frequent arguments went by before Susannah saw the TV show Catfish and decided that she deserved some answers about the man she'd been involved with for nearly half her life. Susannah had honestly suspected for years that Richard wasn't being completely honest with her, and she was finally ready to face the issue. She sought the help of a service that specializes in identifying catfishes. The hired investigators quickly connected Richard's information to a Facebook account belonging to a 60-year-old man named Patrick, who was also married. The next time he called, Susannah confronted him. At first, Patrick denied the catfishing, but he realized that he had dug himself into a hole too deep to get out of, with more excuses, and simply told Susannah, in his own words, that it just grew and grew out of control. He then unloaded to her about his drinking and marital problems, which made Susannah feel guilty. Realizing she was being manipulated once again, she said goodbye to Patrick for the last time, hung up the phone, and finally moved on with her life. Would you ever stay in an online relationship without meeting them or video chatting for this long? Do you know anybody that has? Tell us about it in the comments below and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 3. Jake Davison. Jake Davison carried out the first fatal mass shooting in the United Kingdom in over a decade on August 12, 2021 in Plymouth, England. Davis was a 22-year-old apprentice crane operator for a security and defense company. Davidson had been suffering with mental health challenges for most of his life, ones that his family struggled to help him with. He began to form opinions that aligned with the incel or involuntary celibate internet subculture. They've been described as groupings of people, mostly men, who define themselves as unable to find a spouse despite desiring one, and who generally express hatred towards others who are romantically active, mainly women. Several organizations have designated incels as hate groups, and they have been linked to at least 8 mass murders since 2014. Davison's connection with his mother was strained by his anti-woman attitudes, and he resented her for continually attempting to get him help with his mental health. On August 12th, an argument erupted at their home on Biddick Drive in the Kiem neighborhood. Davison killed his 51-year-old mother before wandering the streets armed with a pump-action shotgun, which evidence suggested had been legally obtained. On Biddick Drive, he killed 2 more individuals and injured 2 more before killing a man in a nearby park. Davis then walked to Henderson Place, where he fatally injured a 66-year-old woman while reassuring a passing resident not to worry. According to witnesses, he held his shotgun like a soldier and patrolled the streets with a blank expression. He then turned the firearm on himself at 6:23 p.m. and took his own life. Local authorities have not determined a specific motivation. However, it was reported in the aftermath of the tragedy that a catfishing scam may have triggered Davison's rampage. He allegedly told his friends that he'd found, quote, the one online and that she was a gym instructor from the United States. Davison had been conversing with her every night, but she had requested money to fly to the UK to visit him. Davison's prospective lover then stopped talking to him because he didn't have the money she requested. The experience strengthened his misogynistic beliefs once he'd realized he'd been catfished, leading up to the conflict with his mother and the mass massacre. Number 2. Jennifer DAIGNAULT. Jennifer DAIGNAULT worked as a state trooper in New York before being put on probation in January 2022 for catfishing and blackmailing another woman. The 34-year-old trooper had been impersonating a man on the internet and had a text-only relationship with a 33-year-old Nassau County woman. She met the woman on a dating website, and their juicy relationship lasted from May to July of 2018. According to reports, the victim emailed DAIGNAULT multiple naked photos of herself, which DAIGNAULT then used to blackmail the victim. DAIGNAULT threatened to post the intimate images on the internet unless the victim traveled to New York City to obtain a fake ID for her. It's unknown what the ID would be used for. DAIGNAULT was arrested on September 13, 2018, following an inquiry. She was charged with a misdemeanor and third-degree coercion. DAIGNAULT had already been prosecuted in the city of Rome for a similar act, when Rome police discovered DAIGNAULT inventing many distinct online identities between November 2016 and May 2018 and using them to harass a lady in the area. She was basically a professional catfish at this point. The victim also provided intimate material to DAIGNAULT, who had threatened to post the pictures on the internet if the victim ever stopped talking with her. In a statement to authorities, the victim stated that she and DAIGNAULT both graduated from Rome Free Academy in 2005. She added that prior to this, in 2003, she began conversing on the internet with a man who claimed to be named Michael. She went on to describe how the relationship became increasingly abusive over time, and how Michael tormented her for a total of 15 years, a period she described as nothing short of a nightmare. The case out of Rome was ultimately dismissed and sealed, but the charges stemming out of Long Island stuck. DAIGNAULT resigned from her job earlier this year, being forced to surrender her badge, and she was sentenced to 3 years of probation. Number 1. DEONTE HICKS. DEONTE HICKS, a Dallas resident, traveled from his hometown to Houston in May 2020 to meet a woman he'd met online. On May 10th, he was waiting for his date outside his car on the block of Center Parkway. It was there that the 27-year-old was shot and robbed. His family believes the incident was the culmination of a catfishing scheme devised by the criminals in order to entice Hicks to the location. 2 unnamed suspects were seen fleeing the crime scene on foot in an unknown direction. The victim, a father of one, was taken to a nearby hospital and died as a result of his injuries. No arrests have been made in connection with his death, and the family traveled to Houston in the aftermath to distribute flyers. They intended to generate new leads for local law enforcement, who they felt had done an insufficient job to bring Hicks' killer to justice. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be tricked into dating a catfish or get scammed out of money by telemarketers? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.